Hello, hello. I'm Andi Chimoner, your host, and welcome back to WeTalk San Francisco. We are here at Airbnb headquarters where we're having a very, very good time, maybe too good a time. But it's about to get even more fun because we're looking at how to create a sustainable society, and we've assembled this incredible group of women here who I want to introduce. And I want to thank Dell, our founding partner, as well as Impossible Burger and Deep Eddy Vodka and Nomatica Wines, and all of our partners, and Airbnb, of course, for hosting us. So we are looking at how to organize our society and how to live sustainably, not just on a global and environmental level, but in all areas of the supply chain. And to that end, we have, on the far end, Radha Mistry, who has a background in architecture, narrative environments, and strategic foresight, and in the office of CTO for Autodesk. And if all of you are like, I don't understand any of the words that are happening so far, it's just gonna get worse. Radha explores the impact of emerging technologies and how it will change the way we design and make things in the future. And prior to that, she looked at the future of work, which we're experiencing now. We're seeing that with WeWork, and we're seeing that with remote work days and all of that. So we'll talk about that. Heather Huestis is the executive managing director of the creative team at Impossible Foods, which is a planet company with a mission to eliminate animals from the food chain by 2035 by making the most delicious meat from plants. And we have clips this time, so we have clips from everybody coming up. But before that, Jill Tidman is the executive director of the Redford Center, which was co-founded in 2005 by Robert Redford and his son and board chair, James Redford. And the Redford Center harnesses the power of film, video, and new media to engage people through inspiring stories that galvanize environmental action. And Jill oversees everything from daily operations to shaping the center's vision to produce documentary films and action campaigns, and drawing on the family's multi-generational network of advisors. They're looking to really fund and fiscally sponsor effective campaigns. So we'll take a look at what work you're doing, Jill, as part of that. So let's see. Let's start with you. You know what? We have a clip. Should we play it? Should we go for that first? Are we going Radha first? We're going Radha first. I told a fib backstage.
Man.
Radha, you've been described as a futurist and looking at the intersection of human behavior and technology and the built environment. And you think that design, the way we design our world, can drive innovation. That's the founding theory, I suppose, of Autodesk, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You brought a clip.
I did,
and
I'm now immediately regretting this decision.
Let's take a look at it. Okay, so what is happening at Autodesk? And I've interviewed Carl Bass, who's your founder.
Our former CEO.
CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So, but still, it's even the word Autodesk, it's mystifying.
Yeah.
What are you all up to over there?
So the wonderful thing about Autodesk is we operate across 3 verticals. We have architecture, engineering, construction, we have manufacturing, and then we have media and entertainment. The kind of confusing part about Autodesk is we operate across 3 verticals. But I think the great thing about that is we can kind of share insights and knowledge across those 3. So for example, a lot of the tools and methodologies that we use in Foresight actually originated in the media and entertainment world. And so it's kind of nice to have all 3 of those buckets under the same roof and to be able to leverage the kind of collective knowledge and get this diversity of thought within the walls of Autodesk itself.
So what is the future of work? Well, I mean, how should we be thinking about a way to live and work sustainably?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big question. How much time do we have?
You've got like a couple minutes. Sum it
Well,
up.
the way that I like to think about it is you kind of have these two tensions. You have the inevitability of more, right? You've got like 10 billion people who are going to populate the planet by 2050. You have 400,000 people joining the middle class every single day. We're talking about mass levels of urbanization. And then on the flip side of that, we have this reality of less. So we have less natural resources. We have to have less negative impact on the planet. We have, sometimes less time, and also less workers who have the skills that we will need in the future. And so the thing that we're really trying to work on at Autodesk is how can the tools help to kind of close that gap? How can we make things for all of these people with all of their diverse needs, and at the same time, make sure that we're not overusing our resources? How can automation help us to understand a better way to move through our supply chain? How can we have a better understanding of the materials that we're using? How can we make sure that we're not wasting 30% of the materials that we currently waste on construction sites? And that's kind of where we are right now.
And there's obviously the problem of people being out of a job.
Yes, and that's something that we're trying to address, but I think that happens at every kind of revolution, right? You had the Industrial Revolution, you had the Agricultural Revolution, and if you think about back in the day during the Agricultural Revolution, people that were using horses to kind of till their soil probably freaked out when they started seeing all these automated ways to do that. And what happens over time is we have to reskill workers. And one of the things that we're really looking at is in the same way that we're thinking about how do our tools really help us to design things in new ways, we're trying to figure out the kind of behavior and cognition part behind that engine. So we're trying to figure out how do we ensure that our tools actually help to teach people these new skills as they're learning them. And so how do we bring people forward in this future of work that we're envisioning and not just talk about the technology itself, but really think about how do people come along that journey with us?
Awesome. Heather, darling.
Yes.
How do we create a sustainable food chain?
Wow.
In 2 minutes or less.
In 2 minutes or less. I'm going to pivot, but answer your question in a way that I think there are people at Impossible that are really, really focused on that. And they've been there longer and they're smarter than I am. But I think what's really interesting as a marketer to have joined them is to say it's really important that we get that supply chain fixed. We've got a crisis. We need to change the way we're doing it. But if you don't fix the front end, if you don't change the consumer demand, then we're not going to get there. And so one of the things that was really interesting to join as a marketer, and quite frankly, lots and lots of years of advertising telling people what they need, to then have a really strong mission-based brand was an interesting challenge, because just in talking to Andy about this, do you lead with sustainability when you're trying to change behavior? And I think that's a really important conversation that's going on right now. And I think the dynamic that's interesting is we've got an ever-increasing awareness of the crisis. It's more commonly written about. I know I hear it in conversation more often than I ever did. But as a marketer and as someone that needs to look at, well, how do you really change demand and behavior, still the number one purchase consideration is quality. And as human beings, we tend to go what's best for me, what's best for my family, before what's best for the world. And that's just human behavior. So I think what's been really interesting for us, how do you change that, is to convince people and give people a better option. And to do that through something that's really appealing, that uses old school advertising.
That's fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the example of Tesla. There were all of these electric cars, and they were kind of thought of as granola or,
right.
So do good that they weren't fun. It was almost like documentary. It's almost like documentary.
Yeah.
Like when I started out in documentary like quarter century ago, there was not. Wow, did I just say a quarter century ago? Yikes. When I say 25 years, it doesn't sound that long. But yeah, documentaries were considered like history books or eating spinach, almost too educational to be entertaining, like an electric car. Then Tesla comes out and makes it this elegant, beautiful, high-end,
That's
I
right.
want to, and then suddenly Nissan Leaf can happen.
Right.
Right? And so it's just very interesting because it's about how we think about it. That if
And
we think
being
it's
honest
hard,
about
if we think it's
human
ugly
behavior.
and dirty or,
Yeah.
then
And
we just-
finger wagging. People don't like to be told what to do.
And now, to wind back around, now documentaries are the thing, right? Now documentaries are fun.
Yeah.
And they're good to watch and they're entertaining, so it's about perception.
That's
because
right.
we're still tackling hardcore issues. It's just a different perception. So along those lines, I have a clip from Heather.
And which one are we showing?
You want to set it up on the
well,
outer
just
space
because
one.
the
outer
space
space.
one, and really what this came from is it was interesting to think about what clips to put forward. And Impossible in this calendar year has put 2 different messages out. One is about our brand. And so it goes back to that question, it's important, when do you talk about your sustainability? And so what we did earlier in the year is, as a brand, as a company, we put out this message, which is the one we're going to show first, which is really about our mission. And the reason this is important is because there's going to be more and more clutter around vegetable and plant-based food. And how do we distinguish ourselves in that marketplace? Well, it's our mission. So it's important that people know that. But then I think we have another one that if we get to, we'll show later, which is when we partner with a brand and the goal of that piece is consumption, we lean way back from sustainability and we talk about delicious. I think this first one is actually our brand message. It was inspired by really all of the feedback of astronauts that come back. They have an amazing perspective, and that when they look back at Earth, just how beautiful and fragile and wonderful and unique that it is. And we found ourselves getting ready to put this piece of work out at a time when most of the conversation was around Mars. And the solution is we should all leave Earth. We should go to Mars. And we actually pitched a campaign that was fuck Mars.
Let's take a look.
And we weren't allowed to do it. This is what we did.
Previously on WeTalk in Space.
Different clip.
What move is that? That's not a move.
Peace. This is RZA 9000, and you are aboard the Woo FO. Together with the Clan, the Jizza, and Ghostface Killer, we are on an interstellar quest to spread earthly love, seek new perspectives, and prime our world for the knowledge infinite. Respect to you earthlings, you have asked your questions, and today we reveal the answers. This is Wu-Tang in Space, eating impossible sliders.
And what has happened as a result?
Yeah, well, and also, that's not our mission film, that's our consumer film, just to be clear.
But that
it was
entire
inspired.
campaign
And
has
yeah,
been-
that campaign was our first campaign with a fast food partner. And so we needed to have a different conversation. We needed to talk to a different audience. We found someone who was inspirational to that audience, and they are vegan and vegetarian and passionate about changing the way their own community eats. So it was a really fun way for us to be entertaining and fun on what could have been a serious topic. That campaign spent out for less than 2 months. And it's a national campaign. It's Impossible sliders are available in all White Castles. In less than 2 months, we are above the projected slider sales. Can't give away internal data, but I can tell you it's working. And I can tell you what I'm really excited about is it changed the conversation in that we had been in news and we had been in food press. And what that conversation did was switch it to we were in Billboard, but talking about sustainability. We were in the Chicago Tribune. And even just that, because it's so early to judge sales, even though they're up, it was the impact of changing the conversation to not be just, maybe coastal, but all of America and all of us, not just people that have been vocal in the past about sustainability.
Perfect segue to Jill. Jill, you tackle this every day as a filmmaker and as the director of the center. How do you think we should message about the issue? And you're taking on massive climate change issues at the Redford Center.
Yeah, so it might be the golden age for docs, as people have been saying in our industry, but if you tack on environmental docs, it's not yet.
People are scared of that and really tired.
They're tired
of thinking about the end of the world.
And, so the Redford Center, we stay in that environmental lane in our storytelling, but we really like to do solutions forward and progress-focused stories because, we have so many of our peers in the space that have done an amazing job scaring the pants off of us about the consequences, what's coming, what's here, and how big it is. And so what we really believe and actually have been experiencing through the work that we're putting out is that people are just hungry for solutions. They want the Impossible Burger story. They want to know what their alternatives are, where to go to get those, how to educate themselves in this environment where there's just so much information coming at us. How do you sort through? And so what we like to do is support other filmmakers that are telling these types of solutions-focused stories and create our own content around it. And I was actually just at a panel earlier about the short form doc that's kind of, more and more becoming a really important element to the
Societal
storytelling
ADD
space.
and a lack of time that we all have.
Yeah, and
Short
just
is nice.
Yeah, someone even said the first thing people do when they get content is they just look at the length and how much time can I commit to this thing. And if it's under 4 minutes, apparently you're good.
All right, we're done. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. No, but actually we have a clip that's under 4 minutes, so you can all watch it. Let's take a look. Uh-oh, that's not true. We're here. We might have a clip. Okay. Well, here we go.
Ever since I was a kid, everything's been doom and gloom in the media.
It was like fighting Goliath.
Even the water commutes to LA, come on.
We try and take stories about real people doing real things, engage an audience, and connect them to what's possible.
One of the attorneys said the pollution only goes to the barbed wire fence. I didn't fall off of a cabbage truck.
The extractive industry's got a lifespan. We have to rely on something else.
We've redesigned some of the space to use permaculture and grow food.
What we're looking at here is utility bill usage. This actually looks like a chart of my psychological status.
Oh, yeah?
For me, I could say water is love.
This is the first time that a group like this has got together and we're all going in the same direction.
I'm on TV. You want my autograph? I'm your mayor.
We talk about the kind of city we want to see.
Hip-hop has really been a platform to amplify the message.
There's beginning to be hope.
The people who are most impacted, the poorest people, those folks should be leading this movement.
We have a monumental task to overcome, and it's going to take everyone's collective effort.
There are no easy answers, no clear solutions. There's only what each of us is willing to do.
So where do we find these films? So many laurels. And I have to say, I made a film about the environment as well, called Cool It, in 2010. And the only reason I made that film was because it was all about solutions. It was all about adaptation and all about forward-thinking solutions. And it was to sort of turn the tide on an inconvenient truth and the fear that we had. And as a mother of a 7-year-old back then, I remember when I was approached about the project, being terrified to take it on as someone who is just, not a scientist. And I got a lot of hope from it, but then thinking about how little we've done as a society to do anything about it in the 8 years since, and it's just, now there's this new report that it's all over really soon for everybody, for all of us, and it's gonna be genocide, climate genocide. So anyway, back to that. Where do we find these films, and is media part of the solution, if people aren't going to watch it?
Yeah, so there's the most recent Redford Center original production is called Happening. It's about the clean energy revolution that is actually happening, and it is very encouraging. That's why we chose that topic. We said we're gonna confront the climate conversation, but we're gonna offer one of the best tools we have and let people know, because if you aren't in it every day, how would you know? And so that film is available right now, actually streaming for free on HBO as part of their voter education campaign. So you can watch that from now until Wednesday, probably. Or we also can get you the film through our educational distributor. It is on HBO for at least another year. And there's the film Watershed that we did is available on Amazon and iTunes. There's about 20 film projects that we're supporting that are all in various stages of development right now. Some of them are on the festival circuit. Some of them are about to be on the festival circuit. So we're sort of newly into the filmmaker support work because it takes so long to make a long-form doc that we realized we wanted to do more, and we had a lot to offer the environmental filmmaking community. So you can go to our website, redfordcenter.org, and check out all the projects, and anyone that's available to watch, you'll be able to link through to there.
That's great. That's awesome. I want to make a film about smart cities, or a series about smart cities, and I want to ask you to tell us what that is and how this is back to design and engineering. But I mean, San Diego, Denver, a lot of cities are rejiggering the way that we live, the way that we function.
Yeah, I mean, I think we finally are at the point where we have the technology to actually help us make our city smarter. And one of the things that we're thinking about is, if our buildings could talk to us, if our cars could talk to us, if our infrastructure could talk to us, what information do we want from this, and how can we leverage that? How can we use it to our advantage? So one of the projects that we've worked on in Toronto actually was an office that we designed for ourselves. And after the construction process, we implemented sensors across the entire building. And the reason that we did that was because we wanted to understand how people were using that building. We wanted to understand how much heat and cooling was required. We wanted to know who was using which spaces when, how much sunlight was coming in. And the reason was that we wanted to know, next time we design this similar building, next time we do something like this, can we make it better? Can we make it so that there's less waste? Can we make it so that we actually address the needs and expectations of people who are living there? So I think one of the things, oftentimes we talk about smart cities, and in our conception of it, it's this kind of like shiny, sexy thing. And the way that we are really thinking about smart cities is, how can we use technology to make them more inclusive? So how can we make it so it's not just, I know we're sitting kind of at the heart of, in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, but like, how can we ensure that it's not just for the 20-something millennial who works in a startup? And how can we ensure that that the technology that we have, the way that we're connected, can actually maybe, get an ambulance to an 86-year-old woman before she even has a heart attack, because we have the technology to anticipate that that's going to happen. Because as part of the Internet of Things, she is tapped into a connected system. And so it's all of those kind of networks. It's how can our healthcare system and our transportation system and, our retail system and our food networks and all of that kind of work better with one another to actually meet the needs of citizens in cities.
And we as women are often the mothers. Well, we are always the mothers, in fact. I don't think men can be mothers. And it's really important what we put in our children's bodies. And I remember when Food Inc. came out, and I admittedly didn't want to watch it for years because I just didn't even want to know, what had been happening. As soon as I did, I was sorry I'd waited that long. And there was that great film, GMO OMG. Heather, how is Impossible Burger making this? I mean, first of all, the burger, which we're all going to eat. All of you guys get to have a burger, but you out there should go to White Castle and get a burger. But how did that come about, and how do you make sure that the values that are represented in that burger are represented from the from the farming, from the agriculture, the way that workers are treated, and every different step along that supply chain.
Well, I think it's a huge responsibility for the company to look at all of those. I can say I've been with the company just under a year, and we take that seriously. We live that culture internally, even 4 days a week, providing free plant-based lunches, like just to start that behavior. But I think when we get to the outside world and we get to the external and we get to moms, and we're not in retail yet, but that's something we're very close to doing. I think it's about saying it's not extreme. It's not either or. It doesn't have to polarize you away. You don't have to not be a carnivore to try Impossible. You can introduce it to your children, see if they like it, because I think the conversation needed to shift from either or. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm just trying to get my kids to eat their dinner. And so am I going to choose the safe, healthy, or am I going to get the job done as a mom? And so, what we want to do is first convince you through taste and deliciousness, then maybe just open it up to be flexible. One's not bad and wrong. We're just asking you to try and maybe mix a little bit more. And, and then make sure that we continue that dialogue. I think the other thing when we think about getting the message out is where you put certain information is so important. And if you're limited to a 15-second, 30-second, 60-second spot as an advertiser, you don't have as long to tell your story as documentaries do. But we need to work together. And so in the advertising, we need to provoke, but then we need the secondary information. And so that depth of information, nutritional for parents, I can tell you it's the same calories as a cow-based burger. I can tell you it's 0 cholesterol. But can I get all that across in an ad where I'm also just trying to tell you where to go?
Well,
it's hard.
We are operating on like you say, we think about ourselves and our families first and society next, and the person on the street after that. And it's kind of like, but we as a society are judged by how we treat the least powerful people in our society, However, as we can tell, the money and profit drive our society.
Yeah.
And so we do need to make it where it's financially solvent. And the meat industry, we vote with our dollar.
That's
and
very
when
true.
we go to Jack in the Box or we go
That's
to
right.
these,
You got to get in fast food in addition to more expensive restaurants. You have to make it accessible to everyone.
Exactly. Because the meat industry is responsible for you probably know the stat. It's like 25% of the destruction of the environment, like of gas.
It might be more.
It's more than that. Beef alone.
I can say over 50% of the Earth's land is used either to raise the animals or feed the animals. And
they're being fed poison for us, right? Mostly.
Yeah.
Hormones and all kinds of things to move this along and to make the profit happen faster. So vegan or vegetarian is something that's political at this point. It's like a political choice. But you're saying it should be not either or.
I think it's not either
Have
or.
some
I'm
chicken.
a carnivore that works at Impossible.
How many people at Impossible are carnivores?
I think they would all secretly raise their hands and say they occasionally eat meat. We do have a lot of people that are vegetarian and vegan. Can I ask the audience a question?
I think that's great. A great
Okay,
idea.
how many people in this room still eat meat, animal meat?
Oh my gosh.
Yep, it's true.
Wow.
And-
Wait, how many don't? I just want to see how many hands.
Okay, so
That's
we've got a
pretty
few
good.
that don't. But the question is, of those of you who eat meat still, me too, how many of you eat it because it comes from an animal? That's an important part in your decision. Or is it about you like the taste, you like the smell, you like the texture? How many of you eat it because it's important to you it came from an animal?
No one. One person? No.
And that's when we knew we had something. That if we could tap the sensory addiction to it, nobody's eating it because it's so important it came from an animal. So that was kind of the breakthrough inside of now we have a fixable problem.
What I always come up against with sustainability is and climate change specifically is it just seems like we're not going to move fast enough to counteract it. And it comes back to that Elon Musk, let us migrate to Mars idea or whatever. I mean, I don't know how can we make the shift? How many films do we have to make?
How many burgers do we have to sell?
How many burgers do we have to make, you know?
How many smarter buildings?
How many smarter buildings, right? And how fast can we move all of that?
Yeah,
I would short of some kind of massive solution, some cooling solution.
Well, I guess the only thing that I would say is, while I agree with you, and it certainly, I think, haunts anyone that thinks about it, which everyone here probably does, is it can freeze you to think about how much is it going to take. And so it's those little baby steps in mass that I don't have the answer. Someone has calculated the answer. I don't have it. But if we can all just start.
We got to nudge it over.
Because it's terrifying how close we are to this crisis.
Jill?
Yeah, I don't want to downplay any of what's really going on, and that's not what our Solutions Forward films are about by any stretch. But I think it really, to your question about, is media the right place to try to start, shifting things? First of all, I would say education is the first step to action. If you don't know, how do you even know what's going on? If you don't know, you don't know, you don't know, or however that goes. Just screwed that up. But I really feel like it's this. We have been told so many times, so many ways that it's over, right? That's what the headlines are. I mean, the New York Times came out with that headline right after the climate report. What are you going to do with that kind of a headline? And I just take it back to what I tell my kids, like, if you think you can, you can. But we've all been convinced that we can't at this point, and yet it's up to all of us. It's not someone else is going to fix it. It's literally all of us have to start really thinking about the power of consumerism and what you're actually doing every day when you make purchases.
Every day. It's every single day, the choices you make.
It's the little stuff that will flip it. And then it's also the big stuff. I mean, one of the films we just picked up to support is actually about cultured meat. So this is meat that's actually grown with animal cells. There's actually no physical animal involved. And this is, you probably know a bit about this, this is right now underway, and it's going to be whether or not society is comfortable enough to actually go in that direction. So some of it TBD, but there are people every day working to solve these problems, and I think it's just it's a race against the clock.
Do we have a question from the audience, or should we just keep chatting up here? Question? We have time for like one great question. No pressure. It's got to be. Let's all rank it afterwards. That'd be good.
Thank you so much for everything you've presented. I think all the efforts that you're making are really, really important to, overcoming this crisis right now. Beyond what business can do, I think there's also this question of civic responsibility and of people participating in democracy, and not necessarily only through voting. So in this room, where many folks are in very powerful companies in this city, what can we do to foster a sense of civic responsibility that goes just beyond business and innovation, but also goes back to this question of democracy and it actually working for us and actually working towards sustainability?
Are we pointing to me all of a sudden? No, I mean, I think, I have this conversation a lot inside of Autodesk, and I think we definitely believe that we have the power to drive policy change because we can drive behavior change over time. And it is our responsibility to do that on some level. And so we do have a foundation that focuses on sustainability. But I think a lot of it just comes down to using technology to kind of getting enough technology out there so that people can use it and so that there's kind of a movement that comes around.
There's also, right now, and just to wrap this up because we have to stop this panel, but there's something on the ballot right now to address the homelessness problem. And, as we know, like this head tax where businesses are going to have to pay a certain amount to fund these shelters. But there's people that are needed to volunteer in these places. And what you're saying is, we have social networks and we have access to technology and we are more connected through time and space than we ever have been. We have more power in our pockets than we've ever had. to do what we can and to connect. And so we really have to get off the couch and get out there and just like check a box. Like, what am I doing to give back at this point? Because it actually feels really good. On that note, I want to thank you, Radha, Heather, Jill. Thank you so much for coming on WeTalk and for sharing your insights with us. And we'll be right back in we'll be back with our final panel, which is about women in tech and entrepreneurship. Thanks.